All right. Hey guys. So I mentioned in the podcast episode that I just did that I wanted to talk about adaptogens. And so I'm inviting you into my sacred space, which is my kitchen, because that's where a lot of stuff goes down. It's where I make all of my herbal remedies. It's where I just relax in. So let's talk about adaptogens. Adaptogens, by my definition, help you to adapt to external stressors over time. So this is an action or a property of an herb. And so there are a lot of different adaptogens. You have ashwagandha, you have oat straw, you have rooibos, red bush tea. Um, Turmeric is an adaptogen. There are a lot of different herbs that are adaptogens. And why I wanted to talk about that is because I think we're in a season where people have shifted into more stressful environments. So people have gone back to school, gone back to work. There's a lot of shifts happening. We just left we just left summer, moving into fall. And so stress on the body, even from temperature change. And stress is normal. Stress is a part of life. But the problem becomes when it's chronic stress. What you mean that's still available? I don't know. My phone's being weird. Where it becomes chronic stress. And I remember this video on the internet, this lady talking about, especially for Black women, that instead of normalizing managing your stress, focusing on to eliminate it, because it's where we see a lot of disease show up in the body is by engaging or allowing ourselves to stay in chronic stress. Now, realistically, I know it's not easy for us to shift our lives because it is a lifestyle change. To remove chronic stress is a lifestyle change. I am a perfect example for that. Leaving my job, I didn't even know I was stressed. I didn't know it was that bad. But I felt different leaving. I felt different taking care of my body. I could see my needs a lot more clearly because I wasn't so distracted um, by these other things. And so, yeah, chronic stress shows up differently for all of us, and it may not be noticeable at first. And so, there are some things you can do when you can't leave your job, you can't remove yourself from a situation, um, you can't do these things that are out of your control, these things that are supporting and sustaining you. There are things that are in your control that you can incorporate into your day to day life to help mitigate some of that stress. And so that's why I like to share with people. And as an herbalist, as a fairly new herbalist, um, one of the most exciting things I learned about was adaptogens. There are even some that help to rebuild your myelin sheath. So there's some herbs. The myelin sheath is what protects the nerve. And so over time, nerve damage from stress, um, and all those things, the myelin sheath can be rebuilt with certain herbs, incorporating those in your day to day life. So I have made a tea today with an herb that I used to drink all the time that I did not know was an adaptogen, which is rooibos or red bush tea. And so, of course, I've added some other things in it, but um, rooibos is really good for food allergies. It's good for grounding. It's good for a lot of things. But the main thing that I wanted to discuss was the adaptogen. Now, there are stronger adaptogens. Um, Ashwagandha is one of my favorite adaptogens, but there are a lot of different stipulations, maybe not stipulations, contraindications that need to be considered with ashwagandha. You can't just take ashwagandha because you just want ashwagandha and take it as long as you want, take it as many times as you want. That's not how it works. A lot of herbs have a dosage. They have a dosage and they have contraindications. Even something as simple as chamomile, so common as chamomile, you don't want to take chamomile next to, if you're taking an antidepressant or anything like that, you don't want to take chamomile at the same time. You can still, you can take them, you can utilize them, incorporate them in your routine, but if I am taking an antidepressant at night, I may not want to have chamomile that night. I may do chamomile in the morning, the antidepressant at night, you know, um, those are some of the things that people may not be as aware of because one, these two things are working on the same system and they help to, with the chamomile and your antidepressant, it will increase the effects of the antidepressant and not necessarily in a way that could be good for you. So that's something that you want to consider. If you have those two, just take them apart. You don't have to not take the chamomile. just take it at a different time, drink it at a different time, or drink lavender that night. So again, adaptogens are sometimes more potent remedies, especially the ones that kind of go mainstream and everybody knows about. So there are different mushrooms that are adaptogens. Think of like reishi, which is a beautiful herb, but you don't have to take it to that extent, especially when you're dealing with stress. I would say the first thing to incorporate, even before you're looking for adaptogens, the first thing to incorporate is what nervines can I include in my day-to-day routine? What nervines with minimal or no contraindications can I include? Which ones are gentle enough for children, um, and easily accessible? Where, because I think that's a big part of it. We've gotten so conditioned to convenience, and we can't, tell people you need to go get fresh herbs from the garden, da 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 da. That's a process that you have to get to that I'm not always at that process, but I do get freshly dried herbs. I don't necessarily use grocery store herbs anymore because those have been processed a long time ago and they've lost a lot of their potency. But if that's what you have access to, that's what you should use. But I would incorporate things like lavender, chamomile, peppermint, calendula, marigolds, spearmint, rose petals. I would incorporate stuff like that as often as possible because those tend to have less contraindications because they are safe for children and they tend to be safe for children. There's some, there's age things on really giving children tea in general. There are age things on honey and things like that. So really educating yourself on what is appropriate at what age and all those things. But if we're talking about you as an adult, childlike remedies work really well for me. And I think it's because depending on what you're dealing with, a lot of my depression or anxiety or mood swings or times that I need support I need a lot of emotional support. That's a big thing that I've identified for me. And what do we know about kids? They're very emotional. So a lot of those remedies are floral. Flowers are definitely for emotional support, emotional wounds. And so that to me is one of the things that I like to work with or work through. And then, then I think about chronic stress, and that's when I start. Okay, so here are my floral herbal remedies that I've been incorporating. How do I feel with these? What else do I feel like I need? And so I remember I was working with somebody once, and she was like, I feel like I need support. Like, I feel like I'm burnt out. I feel like I have no energy. I feel like there's just not enough time in the day. And so when she said that, I automatically thought adaptogen. Adaptogens are so good for burnout because they're helping to bring you a protective shield to rebuild that nervous system, um, to help your body experience stress differently. And so my favorite, I know I was talking about rooibos, my favorite that I like to incorporate at this point is oat straw. And so oat straw is from the same plant as oat, oatmeal. It's just a different part of the plant. It's the straw. Then you also have the milky oat tops. And so you start with the oat straw. It's way more potent than oatmeal, way more nutrient than oatmeal. It has a lot of vitamins in it, um, iron, magnesium. Um, it's really good for burnout. It's good for grief. It's like a hug in a cup. That's how I learned it, a hug in a cup. First time I had it, it felt like a hug in a cup. I'm always skeptical. Anytime I learn something, I'm skeptical. And you can be skeptical too. I don't think there's a problem being skeptical. You don't have to believe what I'm saying. You go and experience yourself. And your world will be opened up. So then from the straw, you also have the oat tops, milky oat tops, and those are going to be even more potent. And so, yeah, I like to sometimes mix them together, but you have a lot of different options to support the stress, the chronic stress you're going through. You don't have to keep going through it without support. Sometimes we don't have people there who can talk us through something. We don't have people there who can sit with us. We don't have people there that can be our therapist, that can be our coach, that can help us through these things, but the herbs can be your allies if you allow it. And so I'm going to show you, um, you see, I got a whole little pantry. So you've got oat straw. It's not much in there. Let's see if I can make it to where you can see. And it looks kind of like straw. It reminds me of lemongrass, but lemongrass is a lot more, I feel like it's slightly darker and a lot more succinct. And then you have the milky oat tops. And so these work really well as cold infusions. Um, so you can put them in a cup and put some water over it. It doesn't have to be hot. And then you can put it in the refrigerator overnight and then drink it as often. You can drink it 3 times a day. Your serving size will be about I'll say 2 to 3 teaspoons. So honestly, I use a tablespoon. Especially if you're drinking it medicinally, it'll be more like a tablespoon and a tablespoon per cup. And you can incorporate this into your daily routine as an adaptogen to help you to manage some of that chronic stress, help you to get to the process where you can eliminate it. Because I can't say that it's going to eliminate it, but it's going to help you manage it. It's going to help you get some fresh air, get you catch up. Um, and over time, you will see a shift when you incorporate these herbs. Um, and it's up to you to kind of monitor the shift. Where's the shifts at? I would definitely journal my process whenever I'm starting to incorporate herbs. I I mean, of course I was taught to journal my process, but I will tell people to journal your process because there's so much important information when you journal what's happening in that day and then you go back and reflect on it because then you can see how beautiful the medicine worked, how beautiful the herbs work in the body, on the system, in the mind, in the spiritual body, in the physical body. You can go on your own plant walk when you do that. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention adaptogens are super important to any herbal routine, herbal protocol, any lifestyle. Um, it's really beautiful. And so I use oat straw and nettle as kind of like my day-to-day vitamins because they contain so much nutrients, so much nourishment, so many vitamins. Um, and it's easy to do. I drink tea all the time, so I might as well drink the tea that my body needs. So yeah, that's my talk with that. If you have questions, let me know. If I said something wrong, let me know. But overall, I just want people to know that there is support. There, 222 again. There is, you're not doing this alone. You'll never be doing it alone. And these are the times to lean into community, to remember that you were not born to live alone. You were not born to live unsupported. There's so much support if we just allow ourselves to connect to community and get the information we need and be open to the different ways of life. I had to open myself up to this way of life. I drank tea. I started drinking tea from anxiety in college. And from there, my interest grew and it grew. And so I stopped buying the grocery store tea and I started getting loose leaf tea blends from different tea shops. I remember when Teavana was around, I started going there. And so it became not only something that was helping me with my anxiety, but also something that I was enjoying. It became a joyful experience. And I think that's important on healing journeys. It's connecting in spaces that bring about the joy because when we can bring about our joy, that will um, that will propel us in our healing journeys is bringing in joy, bringing in creativity. And so that's what it turned into. And then it turned into, oh, I want to have a business with this. And then it turned into, okay, I need to do some deeper studying. And I did an herbalism apprenticeship. And then I restarted a new business. And so it's really beautiful incorporating herbs into your day-to-day life and how they can shift and how they can change you and how they can invite in all the things you never knew you needed, all the things you didn't know you needed that you've been praying for. It's very much a spiritual and a physical journey. So thank y'all for listening. Let me know if you need anything. I'll be around.